I bet you $20 that you and Damien win, Monson whispered to Cyan. She glared at him. He grinned back. Wow, you're cheap. She ran a hand through her shiny black hair. Are you sure? $20 whole. I wouldn't want to break the bank. Monson flinched at the sarcasm. He had forgotten whom he was talking to. He sneered. Oh, you are just hilarious. All right, princess. What do you propose? Cyan's eyes narrowed. How about the classic favor bet? If I win, you do anything I want. No questions asked, no limits. Monson studied her suspiciously. Are you sure you want to make that sort of bet? That would almost certainly ensure that you'd have to come into contact with me. I wouldn't want to upset your sensibilities. Cyan's eyes narrowed further, but Monson continued before she could edge in. You're on, Miss Harrison, and you can ante up the same thing. You do whatever I want. Deal? Cyan nodded. You're on. Done. Monson ran through the possible winners in his head. Who was going to win this thing? Well, that was easy. I'm saying you and the diamond, hands down, no contest. I don't know why you took this bet. It's only natural to assume that Corrin's lead couple would win out in the end. Cyan's glare strengthened to the level of death ray, but at the same time came across as collected and smug. Well then, I'm just going to have to say you and the it girl. I hear you're engaged. Of course, winning would be a great preamble to your wedding. Gray and green. That sure does have a ring to it, doesn't it? It was Monson's turn to glower. Such a sharp-tongued woman. How could he not like her? Have I ever told you that you seriously bug me? No, at least not to my face. Remind me to fix that. I think you just did. Mr. Gatt's voice rose above all other noise. Monson and Cyan looked and nodded their approval. They slapped fists quickly, doing a similar handshake that Monson, Casey, and Artorius periodically performed, and then faced Mr. Gatt. Drum roll, please. The patter of a trotting drum roll came from the stage as Mr. Gatt spoke. It made Monson curious. Who was on the drums? There had been drumming during Casey and Artorius' song, but who did it? Odd. And this year's royal couple is Damien Peterson and Taurus Green. Cheers broke out all around them. There was a huge congratulatory boom as fireworks shot into the air, spilling light, color, and sound all over the modern Colosseum. Out of nowhere, Damien Peterson was at Monson and Cyan's side. He grabbed her gruffly, drawing her in for an awkward embrace, then let go and strolled to the front of the stage to an awaiting Taurus. Taurus looked very pleased. More cheers and elaborate fireworks followed. Monson could not help looking upward as warlike sounds and bright colors assaulted the students below. Mr. Gatt again brought him back to reality. Will all the students please clear the dance floor for the royalty? The students slowly dispersed as Damien and Taurus, arm in arm, made their way down from the stage. Damien walked solemnly, glancing periodically in Monson and Cyan's direction. Just as they reached the center, Casey and the others kicked up a beat, and Kylie's voice rang out. There were nights when the wind was so cold. Giggles broke out around Monson and Cyan. Giggles that did not really seem to make sense to Monson. Cyan, still straight-faced, shook her head ironically. Celine Dion. Monson turned. I'm sorry? Kylie is singing an old Celine Dion song. That's why people are giggling. Their eyes met. She started up again. You look a bit confused, so I thought I would explain. See, it's funny, because that song is like forever old, but Kylie's a huge fan. Celine is her favorite artist. Kylie's song caught them up as the chorus rolled in. But when you touch me like this, and you hold me like that... Further thoughts of conversation drained as the thread of Celine Dion's love song fell upon Monson's ears. He turned to look at the dancing royal couple. Damien's hands were on Taurus's hips, while hers hovered lightly on his shoulders. They swayed slowly, moving in a fine circle. With her back towards him, Monson could only see Taurus's hands gripping the top of Damien's rigid shoulders, but after a few more seconds, she came into full view, and he could finally see her face. Monson stared at that face. Taurus was smiling, but not merely smiling. She was smiling like an angel might smile at her creator. "She's never smiled at you like that," said a voice in the back of Monson's head. Thankfully, it was not Dawn. "So, what should I make you do?" Cyan's voice pinged off his ear with a surreal quality. He turned to her. "What should you make me do? What are you talking about?" She returned his stare of bafflement. "Don't tell me you forgot already. Our bet? I was just wondering out loud what I should make you do for me." "I understood what you were talking about, but I'm not sure what there is to ponder. Neither of us won, or did you miss—" "A tie goes to the girl." Monson's eyebrows shot up so quick, it was in danger of coming off his head. "I'm sorry?" "You heard me. You make a bet with a high school girl, and the tie goes to said girl. Everyone knows that." "I think you need to stay off the drugs, my dear. It's starting to affect your judgment." Cyan shook her head again. "I can't believe you didn't know that. It's a good thing I'm here to help. You might end up looking foolish." Monson rolled his eyes. "I think I liked it better when you were standoffish." Movement around them killed Cyan's reply even before it started. Couples started to walk out onto the dance floor, filling in the space around Damien and Taurus. The final notes of Kylie's Celine cover faded as scattered applause sounded. Kylie gave a quick bow just as Casey started towards the mic. Monson Grey?" Monson glanced sharply upward. Casey pointed at him. "This song goes out to you, buddy." He started to pick at his guitar, and Kylie's violin joined as Casey started to sing. "I can take the rain on the roof of this empty house." Monson sighed in exasperation. Casey and his old-time country music. "Would you like to dance?" Monson's answer, some clever remark, caught in his throat as he refocused on Cyan. Soft eyes followed his hesitation and discomfort. For the second time that evening, he found himself unable to stop looking at her eyes. Cyan was asking him to dance? What? Why? Words would not come. He simply nodded. They walked side by side to where dancing groups slid seemingly of their own accord out of their way. Monson grabbed Cyan's right hand, taking her by the hip with his other. Cyan responded, placing her palm on his shoulder. They slowly started to turn, just as Casey hit the chorus. "And what hurts the most was being so close." Cyan's icy blues caught Monson's eye as he lowered his head to gaze directly at her. He smiled as he pushed away and spun her out. Their eyes broke for the spin, but instantly found one another again as she came back, and she stepped a little closer. "Thank you for helping me." Monson did not answer, but Cyan did not seem to notice. "I've always liked dancing, you know." Her voice dropped to a low whisper. "But until now, I've been afraid. It just seemed like something that wasn't me. Like a desire from another lifetime. I'm still not sure, but I'm glad that I got to experience something like that." Monson wanted to answer, but could not seem to find the words. He settled on admonishment. "Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and that I could be a part of it." He meant to stop, but for some unknown reason he continued. "Dancing really suits you." The statement seemed to surprise Cyan, but Monson picked up the line before she could ask. "I mean, I feel like I get to see some of the real you when you dance." Monson laughed. "Seem to be saying that a lot these days." "The real me?" said Cyan, her tone growing slightly defensive. "Yeah, the real you. I know you're not as scary as you'd like people to believe." The words just kept spilling out like vomit. "The angel in you is trying to get out. I know she is. It makes me wonder why you keep such a tight lid on her." Monson, realizing the cornball line that had just come out of his mouth, pulled another dance move. One that he wanted to try ever since he saw it on So You Think You Can Dance. He took Cyan's hands together in both of his, and then pushed out, only to bring her back to him. In one fluid motion, he stepped towards her, taking her hands and pushing them over his head, effectively wrapping them around his neck. Her hands parted, and he felt her small fingers glide across the skin of his neck, only to clench and hold fast when they came to rest on his shoulders. He replaced his hands, this time, with both of them on her hips, gently guiding their circular swaying. They continued with soft, sheepish footsteps until Cyan tossed her hair and once again found Monson's deep blue-gray eyes with her own icy sapphires. "I'm no angel, Monson. Angels don't live in perpetual darkness." Monson answered. "Angels could live in darkness, just as the devil could live in light. Regardless of the whole angel or devil argument, I think the fire within you says otherwise. You belong in the light." "Such flattering words, Mr. Grey, but you don't know anything of the darkness of my heart." "All people have darkness, Cyan. But you're forgetting that all people also have light. It's we who have the chance to walk towards the light or the dark, and the power to choose." Monson grinned as the words left his mouth. "Someone much wiser than me told me something similar." Cyan sighed. "You sound like a fortune cookie. So, what about you, Monson? Do you choose to walk in the light?" Monson gripped her tighter, moving his hands along her waist. He whispered, "Well, to be honest, I've always been scared of the dark." She sighed a second time. "Well, I guess we're opposites then. You are the light and I am the dark. Two things that can never touch." "We're touching right now, Cyan, and I can promise you this." Monson pulled her body across his and dipped her, still holding her close to him. "I promise that if you ever find yourself in real darkness, I will find you. I will find you and pull you into the light." They held each other's gaze, and Monson watched in disbelief as tears formed at the corners of Cyan's eyes. She spoke in such a low voice that he almost had to read her lips. "Idiot. What does that even mean?" Monson shook his head. "I don't know, but it seemed like the right thing to say." Monson swung her upright, hearing a slight sniff as he did. He gently wrapped both of his hands around her, cupping her face slightly. "You don't have to be so strong all the time." Monson swept his thumbs across her cheeks, pushing away her rapidly rolling tears. She placed her own hands on his wrists, and then looked at him. Monson's breath caught as Cyan Harrison, smiled. Somewhere in the background of life, Casey's song ended, and movement announced the start of another, unheard song. Monson guided Cyan back to the table he and the others had claimed at the beginning of the dance. Unfortunately, none of the others were anywhere to be seen. Monson reached toward his pocket and pulled out his green handkerchief. The cloth jumped out with a jerk, but it was not the only thing that came streaming out. The still broken chain, with his grandfather's stone slapped to the floor with a small ping. Cyan picked it up and held it out. You know, I've always wondered about this little stone of yours. Where did you get it? Monson was relieved to realize that she was back to her normal self. The time on the dance floor had granted them some sort of moment. A moment that Monson was not prepared to think about right now. Molly gave it to me. It was a gift from my grandfather. Cyan's focus flickered back and forth from Monson to the stone. She held it up to the dim light. It's beautiful. Where did your grandfather get it? Monson shrugged. I'm not sure. Like I said, Molly just gave it to me when I came here. She never told me where it came from. This last statement seemed to stick on the tip of his tongue, the aroma of it moving up his nose and back up into his brain. The statement confused him because he could not believe that he had never thought about it before. How did that happen? Cyan pointed to the stone and the chain that held it bound. Why were you keeping it in your pocket? He chuckled. It's broken. I've been meaning to get it fixed, just haven't had the chance yet. She examined the chain, then looked at him thoughtfully. Fixed? Why would you do that? In one smooth motion, she wrapped the chained silver stone around her neck. Her hands fiddled, but only briefly. Then, her hands were back at her side, the necklace dangling around her neck, as the silver gray of the stone gleamed regally against the blue of Cyan's dress. Monson smiled. You fixed it. Cyan shook her head. No, it wasn't broken. He rubbed at the stubble on his face. No, that's impossible. I could have sworn I broke it. Master Grey. Monson and Cyan turned just in time to see Grayson and Marie coming up to their table. Monson rounded on Grayson. Where have you been? You're awfully testy for being in the company of such a fine woman. Grayson grasped thin air in an attempt to tip a non-existent hat. Miss Harrison? Hello, Grayson, was it? Yes, ma'am. And this here's my date, Marie Della Star. Marie curtsied politely. Miss Harrison, it's a pleasure to meet you. Cyan cocked her head, her sheet of shiny black hair rippling. She stared at Marie as if she was not sure what to say. Marie smiled a second time and rushed to Cyan's side. Surprised, Cyan hardly had time to react before Marie was right next to her. Master Grey, isn't this your necklace? Yeah, Marie. Why do you ask? Marie glanced back at him deviously, but addressed Cyan. This looks lovely on you, Miss Harrison. Gray certainly goes wonderful with blue. They really complement each other. Thank you, Marie. It is a beautiful stone. I've always thought gray went much better with green. Damian Peterson walked out of thin air. Monson gawked at him, wondering how long he had been there. Damian stood a few feet back, his hands clenched tightly. Marie glanced sharply towards Damian, her interest peaking, but turned back instantly to the stone, as if Damian was not worth the time. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to disagree with you, Mr. Diamond. Gray and blue are much better suited for each other. Damian did not reply to Marie, but rather addressed Cyan. Come on, Cyan. There are only a few songs left, and I want to dance a bit more. Cyan nodded, not looking at the others at the table. Monson zeroed in on Damian, realizing that if he was here, then Tara should be available. Monson did a double-take when his vision skimmed over Damian's eye. Damian, what happened to your face? Looking closely now, Monson could see the faint outline of a handprint. Monson and Damian locked eyes until Damian's arm wrapped around Cyan. Your girlfriend has always had a mean right hook. Thankfully, she only slapped me this time. Damien, without another word, guided Cyan away, leaving Monson too shocked to object. I think I need to go find Taurus, said Monson quickly to Marie and Grayson. Try the level 1 outer balcony. Grayson pointed upward. That's where you'll find her. Monson cocked the eyebrow. How do you know that? Grayson raised his eyebrow in return. Do you even really need to ask? Monson was about to dispute the point, but let it die. Arguing was not going to get him anywhere. First level, outer balcony? Grayson and Marie nodded, acknowledging him. Monson dipped his head once and was about to shoot out of there when the sound of Marie's voice stopped him. Wait a moment. She rushed to his side and handed him his jacket. Take this. I have a feeling you're going to need it. Monson tossed the jacket over his arm and took off waving a thanks as he rushed to one of the many staircases of the Colosseum. He bounded up the stairs, dodging groups of friends and kissing couples. The upper deck was generally off-limits to the students. No one really knew the reason why they weren't allowed up there, but complained incessantly because of it. Despite the general ban on Corn students, apparently there were a few times when this rule was softened just a bit. Monson was now moving at a haphazard pace. Twice he knocked someone down and came close 2 other times. He stopped himself after the last near miss, pausing to catch his breath and thoughts. Taurus slapped the diamond. Taurus had slapped the diamond. She slapped Damien. What sort of crazy world were they living in? Monson was trying not to jump to conclusions, but seriously, what other conclusion could he come to? Only Taurus Green would have had the nerve to do something like that. The question was, why? Monson grimaced. The question was always why. In truth, the reason for that slap did not seem as mysterious as it once might have. It was about time that he and Taurus had a serious talk. The jostling reverb of his phone startled him. He opened it to see a text from Grayson. One more thing. When we saw Taurus, she was crying pretty hard. Proceed with caution. We wouldn't want another mishap. Monson pocketed his phone. Leave it to Grayson to think about magic at a time like this. He paused, considering Grayson's admonition. He again pulled out his phone, navigating to his photos. He tapped the file labeled Remember. Monson touched the first picture that loaded from the file. A picture of the atrium's fountain scanned in, loading line upon line of resolution. It showed the fountain in pristine order, the delicate sprouts of water glistening. Monson smiled as he looked at the photo. He took a deep breath, momentarily closing his eyes before he tapped the Next icon on his phone. The picture was exactly the same as the last. The same lighting, angle, distance, even the same time of day, with one stark difference. The fountain was completely destroyed. Monson closed his eyes for a second time and took another deep, calming breath. Grayson was right. He had to make sure his emotions were under control. After experiencing everything he had been through in the last year, it was no wonder that he could be a bit on edge. He had to keep it under control. Thinking of Dawn's warning, he thought he would talk to him about Taurus. Only, Dawn for some reason was not answering his calls. Odd, thought Monson. What's your deal, Dawn? He was not that concerned. If he tried, really tried, he could feel Dawn's presence, but it felt disconnected, like their connection was growing even more jumbled than before. Monson rolled his eyes. It looked like he was going to have to do this himself. Counting to 10, breathing deeply, and rubbing his temples helped to take the edge off. Maybe he would try some yoga later. In all, it did a great job of calming him down, at least until he saw someone that thoroughly pissed him off. Monson spun to look down the hallway, aghast at what he was witnessing. Christy Wayne and Boston Timberland were attacking each other's lips like a fat man attacks an unsuspecting Twinkie. They were not so much kissing, but attempting to consume each other's faces. Monson watched, bug-eyed for the moment. He sneered as he did. If everyone looked that ridiculous when they kissed, maybe he would pass on the whole thing. Without realizing it, Monson found himself walking towards Boston. He needed to find Taurus. He wanted to find Taurus. Nevertheless, he owed Boston, and Monson was not one to default on a debt. It was a bad business practice. Molly had said so. Monson walked right up to Boston and Christy and waited for them to notice him. It took them only a moment to do so. Christy's face went from blushing delight to abstract horror. Monson, what are you doing? Relax, Christy. I don't have any beef with you. Disappointed in your choice of boyfriends, but to each his own. No, I'm here to see him. Monson pointed at Boston, the latter sneering outrageously. Monson surveyed him calmly. I have a question for you, Boston. Yes, Mr. Horenvier, replied Boston with a certain level of distaste. What can I do for you? I just want you to answer my question, honestly, if you could. That will determine what happens next. Boston did not answer, so Monson continued, only saying one word. Cyan. Boston rolled his eyes. Oh, that. You see, little freshman Horenbier, whose name isn't important enough for me to remember. The little bit... Monson punched Boston cleanly across the face, dropping him like third-period French. The quick flash of anger boiled, spilling over him completely. The anger pulsed within him. You dare! You dare! Don't you even think! The words were leaving him, falling away with any other rational thought. Monson attempted to gain control. Boston Timberland merely stared at him, stared with overlarge eyes as blood ran down his nose, mixing with the start of tears. Do you know who I am? I'm Boston Timberland. You won't. You can't. You, Boston. I know exactly who you are. You mentioned it earlier. Remember? My name was not important enough to remember? The name is Monson Grey. Remember it well, because if you ever say anything, if you ever even think about Cyan Harrison again, I will find you and will make you regret it. You're threatening me? Monson shook his head. Not a threat, Boston. Only a cold hard fact. Try anything like you did earlier again, and you will pay. I will see to it. Monson, showing his back to Christy and Boston, walked away. He wanted to say more. Actually, he wanted to do more. Like beat Boston to an indistinguishable pulp. He had to get away. He had to find Taurus. A crying Taurus popped into Monson's head, and the picture pacified him a bit. He rushed on to find her. He spirited along the endless wrap-around hallway of the first balcony floor. There was supposed to be an exit here of some sort, one where a person could get an unobstructed view of the campus and town. The whistling of wind told him that he had found that exit. A set of huge, highly ornate double doors had been flung open, inviting a warm and welcome breeze. Framed, just outside the doorway, sat Taurus, crumpled in her white, creamy dress. broken-hearted sobs floated on that wind, which moments ago had felt so inviting. Monson felt the echoes of Taurus's lamentations. He steeled himself. "This time, it will be different," he thought. He would not let her suffer alone in the grip of her despair. But should she? There was a wealth of new feelings, some revelatory and shocking, others painful and disgusting. He pushed it all aside right now. Whatever the implications of this newfound information, he would deal with it later. Right now, Taurus needed him. Monson walked towards her. She did not notice him until he was nearly on top of her. She looked up with big, broken eyes, her pain convulsing, streaking lines of tears gouging her normally smooth and beautiful skin. He could tell that she was trying to gather her composure. Monson took his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders, wondering what he would say and how tonight would change things. He spoke the only words that would come to him. "It's hard to change for someone you love, especially." Taurus's face changed at the words. Her eyes went wide with guilt. Monson placed his hands on her shoulder. "Especially when they don't seem to notice or care." Fresh tears gushed from Taurus's bright green eyes as she folded into Monson's arms. Monson simply held her as she wept.
You've been listening to the podcast-only novel of The House of Grey by Collin Earl. For more news, information, and updates, please visit houseofgreybook.com. Music by Figure of Fiends. Visit the band at myspace.com/Figure of Fiends. Cover art for The House of Grey provided by James Thane. More information at thayn.net.